Hello there, and welcome to this special episode of Home Tech. We're so happy to have you with us. Jason Griffin here, and joined as always by my partner Seth. Seth, how are you?
Good man. We are not sitting in the bowels of the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas, trying to record a show. but I did bring this time we made it home, or you made it home. I've always been home, but I brought something for our listeners and you for just old time's sake. You ready for this?
Let's hear it.
Just start throwing stuff around.
Oh man, that's great. For anyone scratching their head right now, wondering what the heck that was all about. This is going to be one of our CEDIA wrap-up shows. We're actually going to be kind of breaking our wrap-up this year into two parts, and we'll touch on that more in a second here. But last year, Seth and I both attended CEDIA. This year it was just me, and so last year we had the opportunity to get together and record our wrap-up show on site at the convention center in Denver, which was a lot of fun. But we had some pots and pans banging around in the background, and we thought we'd kind of give you guys a throwback for those of you who might be missing that ambiance in this year's episode.
Yeah, just might be missing that, and trucks driving by, and I was shocked as to how well that episode came out compared to like all the stuff that went on while we were there. So, thanks to everybody who hung through that one, and this one we're going to break into two parters, like Jason said, and I think both of them would be very enjoyable. We're going to definitely do some really deep dives into what you saw and kind of what I saw sitting on the sidelines, peering in to CEDIA. So
yeah, it was another great show, and I felt like I had a really productive time out there. Covered a ton of ground, and you and I were just sitting and talking and kind of planning out how we were going to wrap this thing up and really share our thoughts on the show. And it's just too much to cover in one episode is really what it came down to. We felt like it really. We wanted to give it its due. Obviously, CEDIA is, for us as integrators, it's the Super Bowl, right? I mean, this is the big one, and so we're gonna break our coverage up this year into two parts, and got some audio clips from the show floor, some interviews with some of the big players and big names out there, and we look forward to sharing those, and we're going to share a couple of those with you here tonight as well.
Yep, I'll be mixing those in, and that should be a lot of fun. But I think one of the biggest news stories that come out of the CEDIA actually didn't have anything to do with CEDIA itself. I saw the headlines fly across my Twitter feed and across CEPro.com, and just people texting me. And I think in our Slack channel, a couple people posted things in there. VIA, they closed up shop, and this is your previous employer.
They did.
I know you may have a little bit of insight to this. Maybe I don't know. You have more to say than I do.
Yeah.
So let's get your take on it.
Yeah, huge story, obviously, and the timing of it just really. I don't know. I guess ironic is the best word I can think of to describe it. I mean, the story broke and became public that VIA was closing its doors on that Wednesday, the first day. Actually, I think it might have been on Thursday. Either way, it was that first day of CEDIA, and it really was like the kind of the talk of the floor when I would run into old friends who knew that I used to work there, and just kind of overheard conversations about it. A lot of people were talking about it, and huge news in our industry. Obviously, VIA was. For anyone who doesn't know, it was the merger of a handful of companies in multiple states, and they were coming together. It was a very ambitious undertaking, and I know a ton of really great people that worked at that organization. Obviously, me having worked in Los Angeles, that's the bulk of the people that I know. We're out in that LA market, and just a really tough time for all those people that worked at VIA. I know a lot of the guys that were some of the founding partners and very high up in the organization, all the way down to the people out there making the thing run every day, and technicians and admin, back office people, and they're all just all of a sudden out of a job, and my heart certainly goes out to them. Some of the good news I can say is that a couple of my friends I know who were working there are already getting multiple phone calls from other companies. Competitors are going to come in and pick up a lot of that slack. The demand is not going to go away in those markets because one company closed. And so I'm really wishing the best for all those people and hoping that they can land on their feet as quickly as possible, and keeping them in my thoughts.
Yeah, it just so we can have a little perspective on this. VIA was open in 20 locations: Arizona, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Montana, Utah, and Wyoming. And they were reporting nearly 74 million revenue on 375 residential installations for last year. It looks like. That's a huge company. And so from what I'm getting from the CE Pro article that came out, like you said, I think it was on that Thursday, but it was like Thursday morning, like super early.
Yeah.
Everybody was pretty much laid off. Like there's no VIA at all anymore.
It went into receivership, and I frankly don't know exactly what that means, other than basically that the bank took it over. VIA owed a lot of money, and really at the end of the day, what it really boiled down to, you cited the numbers. I mean, they were doing a ton of revenue. It was really a cash flow issue, and
it's got to be.
That was the big challenge.
Yeah.
You know, to take a company in our industry to that scale is incredibly difficult, and that's really what it came down to. It's very, very unfortunate. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. You know, we got a lot of stuff with CEDIA to cover, but it is one of those stories that a lot of people were talking about at the show, and in the industry, obviously people are talking about it and kind of wondering, you know, what are the ramifications for this? What are the ramifications not only in those local markets where VIA closed, but just for our industry as a whole, right? And the perception of our industry amongst consumers and builders and architects and the people who really help drive our business. I think this is a bad thing across the board. There's nothing good about this happening, and I think it's just really unfortunate.
Right, and you know, and we made light. Maybe I made light of Wink going kind of out of business a couple weeks back, especially with my Wink review of their $9 egg tray that I was able to pick up the day that they actually declared bankruptcy. Which honestly, I didn't know that they had declared bankruptcy. I just saw it on Amazon for $9 and bought it, and then found out a couple hours later that they had done that. But yeah, to me, that's kind of the same thing where, you know, a company like VIA, as big as it is, was probably, you know, doing a ton, they are doing a ton of installs, 375, but nowhere near what I think Wink was reporting, like 10,000 hubs that they sold. So yeah, nowhere near the end users that would be affected, but you know, at a different level, because we're talking projects that would be tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that need to be completed now. So this has happened before in our industry, and I'm sure it'll happen again. But you know, like you said, this is a pretty bad thing, a pretty big black eye. But the thing is, the talent is still out there. The people who are putting together these homes and working hard every single day. This isn't their fault. You know, they are out there. They're going to find jobs, and they're going to be able to continue working in this industry.
Yep. Well, that's I think enough said about that, right? We'll move on here and look forward to covering some of these the main themes of the stuff that we actually saw there on the CEDIA floor. And once again, we're going to break this kind of coverage down into two parts here. And tonight we're just going to focus on a couple of the main themes. If you had gone back, or if you had listened to our CEDIA preview show the week before, you know, we really broke the show down into a handful of themes that we were going to be kind of keeping an eye on. It's such a large show. There's so many vendors, so many products there that I feel like you almost have to really go into it and look at it from the macro level, right? And think about what are the main kind of things that I hope to get out of the show, and kind of some of the main things that I'm going to be watching. And tonight, I think we're going to talk about two of the really big ones I saw at the show, which were, again, this continued convergence of the DIY products coming into the CEDIA space, which I think there's a lot of interesting angles to that, and a lot of, you know, ramifications and things that we can talk about. And the other one that we're going to touch on is multi-room, you know, wireless audio, which is a category that's just like exploding. I mean, everybody's kind of trying to get into it and really try to get in on some of Sonos's market share, and you know, with varying effect. I suppose I'm not really sure how that sort of penetration is going. Sonos, to me, still seems to have that market really kind of cornered, but we do have a sound clip from Sonos. I did stop by their booth, and I chatted with a gentleman named Eric Nielsen, and we'll play that. And also kind of looping back real quick to the DIY category, I stopped by Savant, because that's a perfect example of that story with the new remote they put out, and spoke with Tim McInerney. So we'll get to both of those kind of themes and those specific stories shortly. I thought kind of before we jump into that I would talk about, or that you and I could talk about rather, sort of the big three. What I'm calling the big three is a Crestron, Control 4, and Savant. And really, I had conversations with all three of them, and I just thought it was really interesting to hear kind of some of the differences in how they're looking at the market from a very high level and how they're really positioning themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on it. The huge news out of the show was Savant's $500 remote that's going to be sold in Best Buy. And I think I was texting you, sending you message on Slack, putting messages on Trello, emailing you. Jason, have you seen? You probably weren't even awake. I was totally like, just couldn't believe it. But yeah, it seems like a pretty cool thing. So it seems now Savant has is divided, like a house divided, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the messaging I got from them, is that really they're branding around the Savant Pro lineup, which is essentially everything that the guys like you and me. Well, I know you're not a Savant dealer, but I'm using that term loosely, right? It's the integrators who have that access to that Savant Pro line, the Savant dealers, and then really kind of the branding that I got, or the message I got, was that the thing like the new remote, for instance, is called the Savant remote. So kind of the branding using that term Savant is going to be more of, I guess, the catch-all. I don't know if that's an appropriate term, but yes, the gist is that they're sort of dividing the line between what you've got on the Pro side. And then what's interesting is that even inside of that Pro side, what you've now got is you've got the Pro, the true Pro hosts, like the real high-end stuff. And then you've got the smart hosts, which is kind of like still in the Pro line, but it's the lower end, the more entry level systems. And I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with those. But that seems to clearly be Savant's strategy, is to, kind of get into the different segments of the market under, slightly different branding, slightly different messaging. You contrast that with, stopped by the Crestron booth and had numerous conversations over there, and really, from multiple people, multiple times, the messaging I got from Crestron this year was that, we are the luxury brand. We are all about custom. We are all about high end. That is who we are. And I think it's interesting. It's clearly a response from Crestron to what's happening in the market. They see what's going on with this kind of DIY convergence that we're calling it, and they're clearly, talking to the integrators, and they want us to understand as integrators that that's really their core. They're going to continue to focus on that. To that end, it was interesting because, my initial question when I heard that was like, in my mind, is what about Ping? I mean, Ping came out last year. Seemed pretty clearly to me that Ping was a down market solution. I think we talked about that numerous times on the show. That was what we saw out of the product. And they're kind of, I don't know, I feel like they're backpedaling a little bit with Ping. In terms of how they're messaging it to integrators. And what they're now saying is that really it's a tool. Ping is a configuration tool that can be used for higher end systems. It's all the same hardware. It's high, it's the same light switches. It's the same shade. It's not a different line. Ping is a tool that you can use to do some of the basic configuration of your system, but then you can still go up into the higher end system. So I think that's very interesting to see, Savant kind of redoing their messaging on the Ping app in light of this sort of repositioning to be the luxury brand. They're really putting a lot of emphasis on that.
Yeah, I think, I think that they kind of had the opportunity to say that after Savant kind of went DIY. You're a Savant dealer. What was the reaction from you and your, people in your camp, and then maybe from other Savant dealers that you may know, to that particular news about them having a DIY product?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously across the board. There's varying reactions. I did hear, a lot of kind of people kind of murmuring on the show floor that like, oh well, this is, clearly Savant is like not engaged with, we're not their primary concern. I happen to disagree with that. I really do. And we're going to get to the audio clip here where I spoke with Tim, and we, I asked him that question, I think very pointedly. I said, how do you address the concerns of integrators in the market who are looking at this remote and going, well, gosh, this is going to be sold at bestbuy.com, and this is, no integrator required. And, what do you say to those guys? And essentially the point is that this drives more awareness, and that even if people can do it themselves, there a lot of them, most of them in fact, aren't going to. They're the do it for me market as opposed to the do it yourself market. And I agree with that. I think that it's our job as integrators to know that companies are going to move down market. That's how technology works. Things are going to continue to get less expensive, and it's always going to evolve, and we just have to figure out ways to be creative, remain relevant, continue providing value to our clients. And I think that this is just one more example of that. This is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on in our industry for years now, as far as companies putting out products that move down market. So that's my stance on it. But I will say that, yes, I did hear people kind of gloating around and kind of complaining that this was a bad thing for integrators. And I think reasonable minds can disagree on that.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to think this is, well, I don't know. With integrators, it's a mixed bag, but you would have to think this is a little more well received, I guess, is kind of what I'm looking at, to say maybe now than it would have been 5 years ago. I mean, we're as integrators are facing some serious competition from products that don't really serve our clients' needs correctly or completely, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there. But to kind of ignore that and move forward with no answer as a business, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And you can see. I mean, Control 4 was kind of the first one to come into the industry with that attitude, right? And they said, okay, we're pro setup, but we're going to come in at a lower price point, lower margin. And man, if you remember what the market was like 10 years ago, Control 4 was, they were dirt bags. I had people calling them everything but children of God, like they were not well received because, but I mean, from the things that they were doing, I mean, the packaging that they had screamed retail, and dealers were just up in arms left and right. Now I think today that's just more accepted. I think this just feels like the next step. Like, okay, Savant has a DIY solution. Maybe one day Control 4 will have a DIY solution and it'll be okay. That's not the messaging they're putting off now. I mean, you had a quote from Martin Plain there that we're an infrastructure company and we're not going anywhere type thing. Like, stay the course, which is good for a public company. You can't really say, oh yeah, we're looking at DIY, but
I will say, I didn't mean to, sorry to interrupt. I will say that I was fortunate enough to be able to sit down with Martin for a very long conversation directly with him, and that was actually, the purpose of that conversation. It was myself and George Harrison, the owner of the company that I work with. So we weren't, I wasn't on the HomeTech beat. We were there under our business as integrators, and we were chatting with him, and it was a great conversation. I'd never met Martin before. I didn't know much about him, and he seems like an extremely intelligent guy. Was very impressed with kind of his, again, felt like the takeaway that I came from that conversation with was really, steadiness. Like, if I could kind of summarize it in one word, he was very, kind of talking about the health of the company. He addressed kind of when they've been punished by Wall Street in the past and the stock buyback, and how, that was kind of them showing that they're confident. They're confident in their product. They're confident in their company, and that if Wall Street punishes them, they'll demonstrate that by buying stock back. He addressed that specifically, which I thought was very interesting. We had talked about that on HomeTech when it happened. So that was really the messaging I got from Control 4 was kind of this stay the course message. We've been around for a while. We're not going anywhere. The messaging seemed pretty clear to me that they weren't interested in going down the DIY road, at least not at this time. Martin made it sound like that was not something that was ever going to be on their roadmap, but you never know. I mean, tech companies have to evolve and adapt. So I certainly wouldn't hold anybody to that. But the thing is, the emphasis for Control 4 was really on, we are an infrastructure company. We're not just a company making little boxes. He talked about the panelized lighting, and that's going very well for them. Lighting control in general, he told us, was a major part of their business. And that I thought was not super surprising, but the numbers were there to back it up. And And so really it was just interesting, to kind of summarize, right? It was interesting to be able to have conversations with all three of those companies and really just got a very distinct and different feel from each one of them.
Yeah, and I can say that mood is reflected in what they're doing with the product. And I'm seeing Control 4 as a company. They didn't release much at this show. We'll talk about Control 4 later, but what they did do is that they've been releasing software and fixing bugs and really working on some of the infrastructure of the product. And that's really good if you're trying to stay the course and you're in it for the long haul. You want those bugs worked out of the system before you get it in front of the mass market. And I'm just projecting there, like, hey, mass market, it would be good for them, but there's a lot of pain points that come along with that. I mean, you have to think about support. It's just one of the things, dealers call in for support all the time. Like, how is a company like Control 4, Savant, or Crestron going to ramp up their support for end users? I mean, I don't know how that happens overnight. It's just not something that's easily done.
Well, and product returns too.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you're going straight to consumer. I got to imagine that the rate of return on those remotes is substantial, and it remains to be seen how Savant will be able to respond to that, and like you said, support it. I mean, that's a huge thing when you're dealing with straight to consumer. How are you going to support this? Do you have the infrastructure in place, the call center in place to deal with all of that influx of people who are being told that they're buying a remote that's very easy to set up, and maybe if everything works perfectly, it is. But how do you account for all the unforeseeable issues with network hiccups and this and that? And you've got to be able to support it. So I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, we even talked about, I hate to pick on Wink again, but I mean, one of the major things that they had happen was a security flaw. It was an update that they forgot to do on their end, and they had to recall. Like, not only are they taking returns, but they had to recall all their products. Like every one of them had to be recalled because of the security issue. So like that's something that not so much can come up in the remote, but maybe it will later on. If Savant starts integrating and pushing that remote out a little bit further outside of AV control market and kind of competing a little bit more with maybe the Logitech Harmony remotes, where it does like AV and a little bit of automation. Let's talk about that thing, because I saw it. I said, man, number one request from Savant was like, all right, you got to get a new remote. Like you can't sell me this remote. I forget the name of it, but it's like the 500, I think, is the last couple digits of it. Not such a great, to me. I mean, it's probably the worst remote I've ever held in my life. And like this thing that they came out with looks really good. It looks like a really compelling product.
It's a beautiful remote, and it feels great in your hand. The size of it, I think they got right. Not too small, not too big. Pretty slick looking screen. I should address, before we forget, one of the main things that I asked them about, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we should jump into this audio clip first and then we can summarize it. But either way, I do want to point out there is a pro version coming that will be sold through integrators only, and it will unlock a lot more of the advanced integration. So anything like shades, lighting control, climate control, multi-zone audio, all that sort of thing. That'll be on the pro version, and that's not far behind. Everybody at Savant was saying Q1 of next year. They were saying it'd be 60 days behind the down market one that's coming out, and they didn't seem to shy away from that. When I asked if I could, is that a public thing? Are you guys saying that? Are you committed to that? And they didn't seem to shy away from that. So they do have plans for a pro version of this remote that won't be far behind, this DIY version that's selling for $500.
Cool. Well, let's jump into that audio clip and then come back to this, because I think this is a really interesting. It will be an interesting part of their business to watch and keep an eye on moving forward. But
sure,
that's not the only thing that they did there at the show. And so, let's just jump into that and go from there.
I'm here with Tim McInerney of Savant. Tim, how are you?
Good,
Awesome.
Doing great.
Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah, you
excited
too.
for the show?
Yeah, oh yeah, this is it's It's packed, and it's been great so far.
It definitely is. You guys have probably the busiest booth I've seen this morning.
Yes, we are very busy, but it's exactly what it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, tell us about the big announcement. Obviously, you've got a few things going on here at the show, but the big one that everybody's buzzing about is the new remote. So give us a quick overview of that.
Yeah, so we introduced the Savant remote on Tuesday.
Yep.
It is shipping in December. The first units will be available in December for what we call our Savant product line.
Okay.
The Savant product line is it's an entertainment experience. It's a more affordable to the consumer, to the end user product line. Absolutely available to integrators to install, but also is going to be available direct to consumers.
Okay.
Contrast that with our Savant Pro line. We will be coming out with the Savant Pro version of the remote. And we've kind of rebranded our luxury high-end custom install line as Savant Pro.
Okay. Can you tell us when that Pro version of the handheld?
Yeah. So that'll be available in Q1 of next year.
Okay,
so
great.
A couple months after, not very long. And really, we internally thought, well, how do we do this? We of course want to get our Pro integrators, as soon as possible into this. But when we looked at the development cycle, we said, hey, you know what? The remote, if we can nail the entertainment part of it, the setup part of it, the voice control part of it, and the ease of use, just the feel, and get that out to people as a solution, which we are for $499, it's $500, to get that solution in your home, so really a much better entertainment experience than you've ever seen anywhere else. Plus, you get lamp control with it. We'll be adding more, devices and more partnerships to it. Controls your Sonos, all that. But then for the Pro side, to add climate and shades and pool and spa and wine cellars and the relays for your tram and your fireplace, and you want that experience to also be amazing for that Pro consumer, and it takes longer.
And that's where you got to go up to the Pro version.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, so you can get, in your house with one Savant host with the remote. The $499 is for the starter kit. It comes with the remote, the host, and what we call the blaster. It's a little IR puck that's battery powered. You can put behind closed doors, in your closet or wherever you've got it. Really, it's really fast to deploy one of these systems. We see integrators doing them in under 10 minutes for a fairly complicated stack of stuff where you might have an AV receiver that's doing some crazy stuff. It may make 20 minutes with our new Savant Instant, but it's super simple to set up. And really, it's for those, get in and get out, get that homeowner a quick, media room, make them so happy that they love it that they're going to come back and say, hey, you know what? I want to do now these other 3 rooms. And oh, by the way, that lighting control thing that you talked to me about, what's that involved? Well, okay, now you're going to move up to the smart host.
Right.
To get up to 12 rooms of function for that, keep your remotes or, add everything else in there and you're good to go.
Cool. Well, I'm sure you're super busy. You alluded to it very quickly, and I want to touch on it. The Sonos integration. I think that's interesting. Tell us about that.
So we, in the December, it'll be available for, again, the Savant products, and then in Q1 for the Savant Pro products. We pull our integrators. We are kind of a little more, I'd say, closed than a lot of other companies about who we let be Savant integrators. We're protective of our brand, so we only have about 800 integrators here in the U.S., total hand-selected very carefully that are going to represent us. We have internally a Savant community where they can all log in and they post their ideas. They say, hey, you know what, we want these things.
Right.
And the top 2 things that our integrators asked for was a new remote, which we've delivered, obviously, and Sonos integration, because Sonos has become a key player in both the CD industry. It's a stepping stone to a larger system, and a lot of times, integrators do a lot of business there, and so we're really happy to have offered it. It's a much better experience, we feel, with Sonos on our system than a lot of others. Again, with our voice control and the scenes, to just be able to say a Sonos playlist and have it start playing with everything turning on right, being able to do multi-zone very easily. We're really pleased to offer that. Sonos is officially an elite partner of Savant. We have our elite partnership program that includes kind of a hand-selected list of companies that we integrate well with. Sony, Lutron, Honeywell, and now Sonos. And so we're really pleased to say that they are an elite partner of ours.
Awesome. Well, I have one more question for you, and
Sure.
I want you to address, a lot of the talk around the new remote with the integrators has been about how it's going to be sold at BestBuy.com.
Sure.
Some people seem concerned about that. How would you address that concern for integrators in terms of where we fit into this equation, where we can continue to add value?
I think there'll always be value. There's a very vocal do-it-yourself community. People that get into that. Let me tell you, I'm that guy too. I get into tinkering and I love getting in the basement. I'm running wires and I enjoy it. I'm probably in the 3% of people that do that. The other 97%, they don't want to do that. They just want it to work. They want someone to set it up for them. They want to come home and they come home from their long day at work and they want to enjoy, hang out with their kids, and not have to fiddle with stuff. Obviously, there's always going to be a need for the CEDIA installer. The way we see it is that there's many other businesses in CEDIA that do this already. You can name some, and if you look at that partner list that I just rattled off, they all sell direct to consumer and to integrators, to channels the same way. It can be done thoughtfully and right, and when it's done thoughtfully and right, it drives a lot more business for the integrators. You're going to get people now searching for Savant that had never heard of the CEDIA industry that are your customers, right? And we're going to drive them to you as integrators to, maybe right now they just want the remote. They want it in one room, but they don't want to deal with it. They want it in 3 rooms. They don't want to deal with it. And when you go to put that in, you notice they don't have lighting control. They've got shades that aren't automated. They've got all these things that you can then say, hey, you know what? If I see you're remodeling, hey, what are you doing with your technology? It's really easy to quickly turn that into more business.
Yeah.
So we think it's going to really, raise the bar for the entertainment experience, raise the bar for the remote control industry, and drive a heck of a lot more business to our integrators.
I, for one, agree. It's a beautiful remote. I thank you for a bit of your time, and good luck at the show, Tim.
Hey, no problem. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, so there you go, and I think the point there made at the end about bringing awareness to the brand and bringing awareness to what we do, I think it's a good one. It's an interesting way to get into this market, because where most companies are starting from automation endpoints, so like security and door locks and cameras and that kind of thermostats. Savant's taking AV head on, right? And then the automation stuff comes later, and that'll be with the Pro. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting little remote all around. It does have like the voice control aspect to it, which I think is kind of interesting. I tested that out a couple of times, and I will say I had mixed results, but I'll say, we were on a show floor. You could hear how noisy it was in the audio clip. All things considered, I thought it worked pretty well. The Sonos integration I thought was interesting. I pressed them on this Sonos integration, and I asked, okay, how did you guys do this? Because to my knowledge, public knowledge seems to be that there's still no like public API. Sonos is not a company that seems to be too concerned about that or embracing that. Am I mistaken? Like, what's the deal here? And kind of the company line I got from Savant was that they are, they worked in close conjunction with Sonos, and that there's a, kind of a partnership there. But really, they weren't willing to kind of tell me anything further. Interestingly, I actually ran into the guy, and I forget his name, young guy. I think he's 22, 23 years old, straight out of, I believe, Dartmouth. And he happened to be the one who was kind of in charge of this integration. And he was very, adamant. He said, it's a solid integration. We're very confident in it. And so what I saw was pretty slick. They did a good job with the interface. I think that's always been my big question mark when it comes to everybody clamoring and saying, Sonos needs to integrate. They need to integrate. And part of me is kind of like, well, Sonos has a really gorgeous app. They did a great job on the app. So how are you going to beat that if you integrate? And I thought Savant didn't necessarily beat it, right? But they did a good job. It looked good. And I just think that Sonos integration is certainly something that people have really been asking for. I mean, you heard Tim say it. He said those were the kind of the two main things that dealers had been asking for, was a new remote and a new Sonos integration. Now, granted, I don't think this was exactly the new remote that dealers were clamoring for, right? Like, I don't think anybody anticipated this thing coming out and being a BestBuy.com product. But, you heard him address that. I personally, again, think his points are fair about it. I think that, driving awareness, having a product that can get us in at a very low price point, I think is compelling. And I think that the pros, in my opinion, outweigh the cons.
Yeah, it kind of loop back to one of the features that I keep forgetting that it has is that voice control integration. And that's pretty cool. We're seeing a trend there, like the Apple TV, the new Apple TV remote's going to have Siri based into it. And then the Amazon Fire TV remote has kind of had a voice search on it for a long time now, and I think they'll be integrating the Echo technology into it, so you can talk to Alexa a little bit more through that thing in the future, or maybe you can do it now. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think that's kind of interesting that there's a microphone is appearing in a remote, and I kind of applaud Savant for kind of doing that, because it's not something you see anybody else in our industry doing. And building that voice pickup microphone into the remote itself, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing to pull off, and I'll be interested to see how that goes for them. Everybody obviously was talking about the new remote, the Sonos integration. Those were big topics. One of the things that was getting a little bit less coverage and conversation was some modifications that they did make to the Savant app, which was obviously, like we talked about a ton last year from the show. That's a gorgeous app. I still think that it's the best out there in terms of the big three in home control. They did kind of make some improvements. They flattened it out a little bit, and what they said was the focus was really on getting the button presses down that it required to do some of the more common things. So they just kind of made the navigation a little bit easier, pulled some of the stuff to the front that you used to have to kind of get down into a couple different menus to get into or what have you. And I thought they did a good job with it. I think that was a tough app to improve on. I thought they did a really great job, on the initial release, but it's good. They're continuing to kind of listen to feedback and make some improvements on that as well.
Last show, you said you were really interested to see if they had any HDMI stuff, HDMI switchers and that kind of thing going on. Did they show off any of that, or did you see anything new from?
Yeah, they've got 4K cards coming for their chassis, and they've also kind of partnered up with a company that I hadn't heard of before called PureLink, and this is for, I think they've got like a 4x4 and an 8x8, just like straight HDMI out matrix. Basically a solution that they feel they'll be selling. They're not going to rebadge it. I mean, it's going to say PureLink right on it. But my understanding is you can buy that through your Savant channels, and essentially they're touting it as like a solution that was designed military grade was kind of the term they were using. So supposedly ultra reliable as far as HDMI goes, and again, that's like a fixed 4x4 8x8 chassis. So the thought there being that you'll have something that you can get into a job that's not like a whole card-based system that costs, you get that extra price tag with. So more of kind of an entry, not an entry level necessarily, but just a more budget conscious type of solution. So that was really what I saw out of them as far as HDMI goes.
Right. We're seeing most of our vendors, as integrators, most of our vendors trying to become that one-stop shop. I mean, Control4 went as far as to purchase Leaf, which were making their HDMI matrix switchers, and for whatever reason they didn't rebrand them. So when you buy a Control4 matrix, HDMI matrix, it still says Leaf on it. It has a Leaf logo. It's kind of confusing there, but I guess they do what they want to do. But you go over to Crestron, you have DM, and that's their own in-house product. But I can think of a couple of other. It just seems like they want us to stay within their their shopping cart, and keep more dollars flowing through their company. And I've just seen that trend more and more often now that integration companies are bringing in third-party products to sell to their dealers. And I think it's mostly positive, mostly a good thing.
Well, yeah, I think it at least gives a company like Savant or Control4 a little bit more ownership and control over what products they can support. Obviously, they, as a control company, they've really got to have the ability to support a huge variety of different products. But if they can kind of say, hey, you're a Control 4 dealer, we're going to make it very easy for you to purchase Leaf HDMI switchers through our portal, and we're going to give you incentives and try to drive, your dollars towards those particular products, then it makes it easier for them to kind of form like a close partnership with that third party, right? And it makes support easier. It's a product they can get behind that they believe in. So I think, I agree with you. Overall, I think it's a good thing.
Yep. So,
and like, why reinvent the wheel, right? I mean, it's HDMI switch, it's 4K HDMI switching. There's a lot of companies doing it. So if you find a solution that's good, it's not necessarily a good thing to just go out and kind of, spend the money reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, that can't be a cheap thing to do. So let's talk a little bit about some multi-room audio. It looked like, Sonos is the big dog when it comes to, if I say music throughout the house, everybody, will say or has worked with Sonos, I'm sure. But this year and last year, they started to get a little bit of competition. It looks like it's heating up this year. A lot more companies out there doing multi-room audio.
Yeah, it's a category that everybody seems to be looking at, who's in the audio space, and we're seeing an increasing competition there. I think again, Sonos is a tough competitor there, right? I wouldn't want to be going up against them. They've got kind of that first mover advantage. They really defined the space when they came out with their product, and I think they've just done an excellent job continuing to develop that and refine the app and put out new products at a kind of a strategic pace. They're not putting out new products just to do them. They the play bar and the sub and these things have come out just over time, and it feels like every product they put out is well thought out, is well designed, is well executed, and I think they've just done a pretty masterful job as far as being a standalone audio solution. We do know that there are limits with integration. We touch on that. I think we should go ahead and probably what we should do here is jump into our audio clip. I chatted with Eric Nielsen of Sonos, and I asked him about some of these things and just sort of this evolving landscape of multi-room audio. Thought his answers were very insightful, and I think it'll add some good context to our conversation about multi-room audio moving forward. So let's go ahead and jump into that clip.
I am here with Eric Nielsen of Sonos. Eric, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us, Jason.
Awesome. Yeah, you excited for the show?
I am. It's one of those things that actually we don't even have a booth at CES.
Right.
It's the only place where we come to a trade show because we were founded on dealers and their support and them bringing great music experiences to home. So it's really great to still be here and see so much growth over these last 12 years.
Definitely. It's one of the booths we always look forward to stopping by, and we talk about Sonos a lot on HomeTech, and so we're happy to have a few minutes of your time here.
You bet.
Let our listeners know what's new. What are you guys showing off this year?
We have a couple really great things. So first is the totally reimagined Play 5. So Play 5 was our first all-in-one speaker back in 2009.
Yep.
We decided that we could do better. We needed to rebuild it from the ground up. So it's completely redesigned. No screws reused. No drivers reused. So it is now our new flagship speaker. It actually has 6 drivers in it, so 3 long throw mid-woofers, 3 tweeters, and it now has capacitive touch, which is interesting. So no more buttons. You sort of tap to the right of the little Sonos ID tag or the left to go up or down, or you can rotate the speaker to be vertical, and then you sort of tap whatever is the top, because you can rotate it left or rotate it right. Mm-hmm. So whatever is above is your volume up, and whatever's below is your volume down.
Yeah,
you can also skip. So you can go across the 3 little buttons.
You gotta swipe.
And swipe to the right, and you get to the next track, or you swipe back, and now you can go back to the track. So we used to before, with our buttons, you could double tap and go to the next one. Now you get to go backwards too.
And most importantly, how does it sound?
It sounds phenomenal. I mean, we've learned a lot since the Play 5. We brought out the Play 1, the sub, Play bar, all of that technology that our engineers and developers put into all those products are now showcased in the Play 5. So it really is a fantastic sounding speaker that has bass response almost as low as our sub, and again, crystal clear highs and mid ranges that never distort.
Awesome. Well, I want to ask you about integration. A lot of our listeners are fellow systems integrators, and we're putting in Sonos, and we're always being asked by our clients to maybe make it work with a broader control system.
Yep.
I was over at the Savant booth, and they're showing off some integration there. And but what's your guys' stance on that? I mean, what's going on from your perspective as far as integrating with third-party control systems?
Yeah, our stance has been that we really want to make the best music experience possible in a home, the simplest as possible, and that really manifests by us sort of controlling all of the elements, and that's why you see so much work put into our apps, our controllers, to make sure that when you want that music to play, it plays in the room, plays at the volume levels that you want. So we feel like the best music experience is one that we control. There are, but we do use wireless protocols, UPnP protocols, that can be reverse engineered. And so Savant, Logitech, back in the day, Extra Vegetables, used to do that as well. So they would use those calls, which is fine. And if it works well for people, that's great. But we still think that we're going to do the best experience, most robust, that's always going to play the music when you want it to play.
Yeah. One circle back, one more specific feature I just remembered that we didn't talk about on the Play 5 is the tuning technology.
I was going to mention that, and it's beyond the Play 5, so it's across all of our speakers. So Play 1, Play 3, Play 5, new and old. So even though we've discontinued a speaker, we're going to make it sound better.
Good.
What TruePlay is you use your iOS device will emit a test tone out of the speaker. So wherever you want to place the speaker in a home, that's where it should be. We shouldn't have to tell you, move it 4 feet, from the left wall and 12 inches from the back wall.
Right.
If you want it tucked in that bookcase, let's put it in the bookcase, but make it sound the best possible.
Yeah.
So TruePlay emits that test tone out of the speaker. You literally walk around your room waving your iOS device, that's iPhone, iPad, or iPad mini. Walk around the room for 55 seconds, 55 seconds, we'll hear what tones are being emitted, what are being absorbed, what are being reflected. And then once it's done, we're going to then re-EQ our speaker back to that ideal curve.
Nice.
Based on what is happening in your room. So it's a custom sound for your home in 55 seconds.
Yeah, smart feature.
And it's free. It's free.
Good.
That's the other part.
Yeah,
it's
that's
free.
always a good thing.
Yeah.
One last question I want to ask is a broad theme that we're watching this year at CEDIA. Is this increased competition in the space of wireless music? We're seeing more and more people kind of come to that table and show an interest in the category. What's your guys' stance on that? What makes you feel like Sonos is still the number one, product in that space?
Yeah,
assuming you feel that way. Right?
I do. Definitely. I've been a Sonos. I bought my first Sonos in June of 2005, and only joined them a little over 4 years ago. So I've always been one of those advocates, and think that we've done a great job. And having more competition is great, because we were off by ourselves trying to tell everybody wireless.
Educate the market.
Yeah, and streaming, that was the future. Wireless control from your phone. People, no, you got to have these big boxes and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So have more people sort of coming to the dark side, if you will, of wireless technology is great. And we welcome the innovation that it brings and pushing us further. So I like our head start.
Yeah.
TruePlay, I think, pushes it a little bit further down than other people, but that's fine. Just more people having more people care about home audio and great sound at home. It's a perfect thing for us. So
awesome.
We'll take it any day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time, and good luck at the show.
You bet. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, it was a pretty good thing. Did you see the Play 5?
I did.
Is that thing a beast or what? Like,
yeah. It's a beefy speaker. It sounds great. They did a great job on it. Once again, it's another product that I just thought felt very well thought out, well designed, and most importantly, sounded great.
Yeah, I mean, I will lament. I really did like the original design on the Play 5. I imagine they were really going for better audio quality out of this one, the way the cabinet looks and everything. But I really did like the slim look to the old Play 5, where you can kind of tuck it up on a kitchen counter and kind of tuck it away and still get really good audio out of it. But the Play 3s are pretty good these days, and with the new the TruePlay tuning that they have, I suspect that be getting a little better. I can't wait to set up my house, the system I have at the house, using that TruePlay tuning feature.
Yeah, and the nice thing there again is that it's that is a software update, so that can be done on any Sonos product. That's not exclusive to the new Play 5 hardware. So you kind of get that enhanced tuning capability, even if you're an existing Sonos owner who's got some older equipment, which I thought that was cool. I thought his comments on integration were very interesting, Seth. I want to know what you make of that as, kind of the guy from the development background.
Well, I don't know what to think. There were rumors going into this that Sonos would have a more public facing API, and they're using what they call UPnP, which is, if you look it up, it's kind of a standardish way of doing things. But the bigger problem is that they can kind of change how they do that at any point in time, because it's not a public API. It's not set in stone that they're going to do it this way, until they say, this is how we want you to integrate with our products. You just have to use this, what is lovingly termed as a hack, unfortunately. But I think they really need to start looking into getting that API written, especially with the increased pressure from companies like Denon with their Hios line. And man, oh man, that the Hios drive, we talked about this it's a 4-channel amplifier at a couple shows back, but you took a picture of it and posted it over to me, of a 32 zone system they had, sitting in a single rack. Oh man, I got to have this.
It's a nice product. It really is. So basically you get your 4 zones and then it's expandable. You can kind of stack them, and you can do up to 32 zones on a Hios drive system. And it's really a pretty cool product. I mean, it feels more like a comprehensive audio matrix switching type of system that just happens to also do, dozen or so streaming services or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Because you do get a little bit more flexibility. I should say a lot more flexibility, really, I think, than you get with a system like Sonos. They've got, I thought was interesting, something they went out of their way to point out to me was the optical inputs on the Sonos, or I'm sorry, on the Drive system. And you get the ability, let's say, for instance, you've got a surround sound source that's playing a TV show in one room that's encoded in surround, whatever it is. You're able to put that into the Drive, get that into the Drive system through the optical input, and it'll actually downmix that to your zones that have just 2-channel, which I thought was interesting. Not a super common thing that's going to get utilized very heavily, but it's one of those things when you're an integrator and you're designing a system and you come up against one of these unique challenges using a system like Sonos, you've got to just kind of come up with, you stick a little widget or some sort of converter or box into the rack that's going to help you kind of design around that. Whereas with a system like Hios, you've got that ability built right in. So it very clearly is a product aimed at, an integrator-friendly answer to Sonos, I would say. And they don't seem to make any secret about that. In terms of their messaging and branding, they're not outright calling it that, obviously, but they really are kind of trying to drive that point home that this is an integrator-friendly product.
Yeah, one thing I think Sonos really tries to push in their messaging is that they really they love the music and they love the sound quality over anything else. But man, if it comes down to a product that is easily integratable and has the I/O that I need as an integrator and roughly costs about the same, like I'm going to go that direction. I'm sorry. And Denon is, they're known for making amplifiers, so they're not doing that wrong. And I really can't fault. You still have, on top of the Drive system, you still have the like the little wireless speakers they have too.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah. They've got a whole like array of products that basically, for every Sonos form factor type of product you think of, Denon has an answer. The Hios line has an answer. I'm pretty sure this was a new product at CEDIA this year. I could be off on that, but they were showing, a Hios soundbar and a Hios wireless sub. So they did have those being demonstrated at the booth. And I'm pretty sure those are new products, are relatively new. So they've got a lot of different, the freestanding speakers. They've got the, kind of the drives. There's a whole different array of products. It's certainly not just that one drive.
Right. And this is kind of loop back to the conversation there with Sonos. Like, This is kind of where that's going to end up going. If Sonos would not be able to make something like the Helios Drive without providing us integrators with an API, right? Like you're not going to have something that has 4 zones and a decent amount of I/O on it without giving some kind of control protocol over. And if you have to do it for that one product, you may as well do it for all the rest of them too. Right. So there's only so much longer I think they can sit on that, especially when I can guarantee you after seeing that some of their sales are going to start going over to Denon, simply for the fact that the flexibility that you get out of something like that in what looked to be about two rack units.
Yes, I believe it was a 2U. Yeah, the
amplifiers looked seriously deep though. I mean, it was probably 12 to 14 inches on the back of that rack mount. Like I was looking at it going, man, these things are big for a 4-channel amplifier. So
right.
I'm kind of curious to see what kind of heat they produce and that kind of thing too.
Sure.
Later on, I guess. But
yeah. But I think back to just kind of that broad point about integration. I think right now Sonos feels pretty strongly that they don't necessarily, even though they may not come out and cite this as a reason, I'm sure that in conversations internally, it's like we don't have to integrate. Like we don't need to integrate. We don't need the extra support cost that's going to bring. We're doing just fine without it. And I think the only way that we're ever going to see Sonos open up and get more integrator friendly would be increased competition. So I think seeing more of these products come about on the show floor this year at CEDIA was something that I was generally happy to see, even though I'll be the first to admit that I'm not one of the loudest voices out there by any stretch, kind of campaigning for a Sonos API. I think that Sonos has its place. Typically when we spec it, it's for that kind of job that we don't necessarily, the client doesn't want something that's integrated into part of a larger system. We spec it as a standalone solution. We sell it as a standalone solution, and clients seem to love it. And so I get the need for it. I see why people want it, but I don't necessarily see it as a major drawback to me selling Sonos, if and when I do.
Yeah, I just have to wonder how long that stance can last, especially with more competition directly aimed at removing that little white Sonos box from the house and putting either something else in, or even in Control Force situation where they integrated Pandora, Deezer, and what's the other one, Tidal, directly into their controllers. So I mean, Pandora, and this is just in the States here, but Pandora's huge. Like that's what I'd say 99% of my clients are going to use when they use Sonos, and nothing else, other than maybe like TuneIn, which is built into Control 4 already. So I'm kind of wondering to myself, like, what do I need a Sonos box for if I can go back to using traditional product with good margins and all that good stuff and make a system work just as well, if not better, without kind of having the headache of a partner in this situation that just doesn't want to work with us very well. And that's the way we look at it as integrators. We look at it not only from the purchase point, we look at it from the price point. We look at it from we're buying this today, but 5 years from now it's got to work as well as it did.
We're entering a marriage, right?
Yeah.
Every time we spec something, so it's a valid point.
So there was plenty of others that were kind of jumping into this game. You mentioned Bose earlier, I think. Polk. I saw a bunch of pictures from this Polk audio wireless speaker that was out. It kind of looked just like the Play 5. I'm not sure if you saw that thing. And then there's
I passed their booth a couple of times, and I saw some demos going on. I didn't get a chance to stop in and see it. I think I'm remembering correctly anyways, I think I saw they were showing like these different skins that you could snap on. They had all different colors and kind of designs. So sort of playing on the design angle, which that was the one thing that did kind of catch my eye and I thought was interesting. But did not get a chance to stop by and check that out. Didn't get a chance to look at the Bose one either. Harman has one called the Omni. Not a new product to my knowledge. That's been out for a little while. I was over at the Harman area kind of checking out, we do a lot of Revel and JBL. So I was in that area chatting with the guys and kind of had a quick talk about it. Didn't spend a lot of time on it. It's another product out there. as an option, but probably didn't strike me as a product that Harman's really banking on doing a ton of business with, right? It was just sort of something to have in their lineup. They're a massive company. They've got their hands in a lot of different pies, so I'm not super surprised to see them, kind of bring a product to that space.
Yeah, Harman is a massive company in general. So yeah. And there was a couple of other companies out there like Zector, who are doing the traditional AV multi-room AV thing that came out with some pretty cool products. They had, I think they call it the Pro Audio line. We'll put a link to a little video to watch in the show notes. But I thought this was cool because, so more often than not, these new streaming devices are great and all, but you got to get back to the basics sometimes. And when you need to, this product's like the one Zector had, really cool to have in your toolbox. Because this thing, I mean, you put any audio source into it, it'll put anything out. It's got digital in, digital out, time delay. One of them even had like an HDMI matrix built into it, so you can pull the audio sources directly off like an Apple TV and do your matrix switchings. Yeah. And Zector, I mean, if you haven't seen Zector, look them up. They're a pretty cool company. A bunch of good guys run it, and have been part of the CI community for a long time. It's always been good product. Have heard no complaints about it at all. So it's just one of those to look
Interesting.
into.
Yeah, didn't get a chance to stop by there or see them. One other one in this category that I did stop by and talked with at length was a company called Blue Sound that I was just intrigued to learn a little bit more about. And they are a small company, smaller than Sonos, obviously. They're kind of touting what they said to me is that they were the second ones into the space. Sonos kind of defined the space is what the word they used, but they were kind of the second ones in there. This is not a surprising angle to hear people take, but they're really staking their claim on the more hi-fi, fully uncompressed Wi-Fi, 24/192, all the different, they're throwing out all the different numbers, and my head's starting to spin a little bit, even as an integrator. Burr Brown DACs, which I know is a very high-end DAC that there's built into there, and it's, all built on NAD amplifier technology. So there's some elements in place there that they certainly can kind of stake a claim on high fidelity. One thing that really caught my attention was that, like what you were just saying, Pandora. That's the big dog. That's the one that people really gravitate towards. They do not have Pandora. He said yet. They're working on it, but it was really sounded like an issue with Pandora just not. They're a small company, and Pandora not really giving them kind of the attention that they needed in order to get that done. So it's an interesting product. It does a lot of what Sonos does, of course, but there seemed to be more in the interface. Kind of, if you had a client who was very into hi-fi and that was their thing, this might be a solution that you look at. The other thing I wanted to touch on is that they do have like rack mount solutions that would be, a lot more integrator friendly than something like a Sonos system. So there were some interesting aspects to Blue Sound. I frankly don't know that there was enough compelling there for me to take a look at it in terms of doing multi-room audio, but it's always good to kind of stop by and check out the options, see what's out there.
Yeah, I'm looking at their website now, which we'll also put in the show notes. But yeah, this looks pretty good. It's a little bit more pricey, and I guess they can do that because they're a smaller company, so they're going to have to charge a little bit more. But they've got a number of other interesting products on there, like little what they call a vault, where you can put it.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, you can put a CD in, and it'll rip it and store it, which is good because that's easy for tech people to do. But it's really not easy for a lot of our clients to do. Mm-hmm. And I really miss the days where you had products like this available, where you could just put a CD in, close the tray. It looks up, Grace Note Media, looks up all the cover art and everything, downloads it, and puts all the track information together for you. I really miss those days because I still have clients, believe it or not, that they have nothing but CDs, and they need a solution. And we have to sit there and show them how to rip stuff on a computer using iTunes, and they have to know that has to be set up just right. And it's kind of a headache. Give me something
definitely
easy, and I'll sell that.
And that was definitely something they were showing off. They had the model sitting there kind of with the CD, halfway in, kind of floating out there, so you could see what it was. A couple other like integration friendly features. They are Control4 certified. He mentioned Universal Remote and Crestron, kind of certified drivers coming soon. I did ask him about Savant. He said it wasn't happening, right now at least. And Savant doesn't sound like Savant's really playing nice. No major surprise there. I just don't think Savant was really interested. They did have like some interesting stuff going on where you could get in and like do custom configuration of IR triggers. So if you had any like IR remote driving your entertainment system, you can actually like learn IR commands into the Blue Sound system there, so that you can, essentially you get a lot of flexibility in terms of integrating this into like an IR based control system, which I thought was kind of interesting. And the other kind of last touch point that I wanted to mention about them is that they do have something that I know Sonos dealers have been clamoring for a while, which is an outdoor speaker. And it was like a PSB is the company, PSB speaker company, that I wasn't super familiar with, but others have probably heard of, that they're working in conjunction with on that. And it's actually like a PoE product. So you just run a single Cat 6, gets power over Ethernet, and it's outdoor rated. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Oh, that's killer. Yeah. No, and we spent more time talking about companies that offer integration than we devoted to actual, companies who don't cough Sonos. And, it's one of those things, though. This is what we do, and this is what we like to see. And I kind of take offense to, people saying that, it's kind of a hacky way to integrate with my system because we prefer our interface over everybody else's. And I get it. I really do. But we're not really their consumers there. Our end users are using something else. They're not using the Sony remote either. I'm sure Sony thinks that their remotes are the best, for their TVs, but we don't like those. We like to use our remotes that we can service and deploy and set up and make sure it work correctly every time.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, enough of Sonos, man.
Well, yeah, that pretty much brings us here to the end of this episode. Once again, just to reiterate, this was only part one. We've got another part coming. We wanted to kind of give CEDIA its due, and with travel and everything else going on, we just wanted to make sure we got this episode out there and kind of shared with you what we're doing. And we'll have a continuation of this episode, a part two, where we're going to cover a number of other themes, including, things like video, kind of the business aspect, right? I think we're going to touch on that a little bit. I looked at some different software solutions out there that'll help integrators sort of run their business. 3D audio, Dolby Atmos, these, Auro 3D, DTSX, these were huge themes at the show, and a lot more. So we got a ton more that we want to touch on, a lot more vendor interviews and vendor specific news that we're going to get into next week as well. So be sure that you tune in for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be doing our more deep dive on all these subjects. I'm hoping we can wrap it up in part 2 and not have to move to a part 3. But yeah,
we will figure out a way.
Exactly. All right, man. Well, I also want to plug everybody over at technology.fm. If you've been listening to our show at any length of time, you've heard us mention them as well. And there's a lot of great podcasts over there. We're part of the Technology.fm family, but there's other good podcasts on there, including I believe Richard Gunther, his Home On show. He did a little quick CEDIA wrap up too. I think his came out Sunday or maybe Saturday. He was there at the show. I know you guys talked, and we'll have that audio clip next week. But take a listen to his show if you like what we do. There's definitely a couple of other ones on there, like the Smart Home Show and the Smart Kitchen Show too. Mike Wolf's making that one now.
Yeah, lots of great stuff there. Really want to thank everybody for tuning in. We really enjoyed putting this show together. Really looking forward to doing next week's show as well. And if you have any comments, any feedback or suggestions based on this episode, or anything that you want to suggest moving forward, we'd love to hear from you. Best way to do that would be the feedback page on our website. So you can go to HomeTech.fm/feedback. And then the other thing I wanted to plug is just, again, thank our patrons of the show. If you're not familiar with that, we do have a Patreon page, and that's a page that you can go to. And if you're a fan of the show and you're getting some value out of it, you think what we do is helpful, then you can support the show, and you can do that for as little as $1 a month. We really appreciate it. You can find out more about that at our website as well if you go to HomeTech.fm/support.
And you can also reach both of us over at Twitter as well, at HomeTech Podcast. So we'll put all the links to that, everything in the show notes, which will be at HomeTech.fm/shows/ what is this, 84? 84. All right. Well, that wraps up CEDIA Part 1. We'll see you next week for CEDIA Part 2. Jason, have a good night, man.
All right. Thanks, Seth. You too.